Okay, moving on to the next team in the SEC that we will be going over today. That would be Conzo Martin and his fourth year as the head coach of the Missouri Tigers. And I do feel like Missouri is kind of similar to a lot of the other teams in this same tier in the SEC. I believe Missouri is kind of similar to South Carolina. I think they could be in the same tier as an Ole Miss. And I feel like when you look at this Missouri team, the first question you're going to have is, okay, what exactly should this team's goal be this season, and how exactly are they going to improve from last season? And last season, Missouri was a little bit disappointing, but there is some good news for these guys. Everyone comes back from last year's squad, including Drew Smith, the redshirt senior. He averaged 12.7 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. If you talk to most Missouri fans, it's funny because they are actually not as high on him, and they would tell you that the former transfer from Evansville had a little bit of a disappointing season last year. And I don't think he was bad, but I do think if Missouri wants to take that next step forward, Drew Smith will be a guy that will lead them to do that. They also have Mark Smith back, the former transfer from Illinois. I think he could be a guy that could be one of the more consistent scorers on this Missouri team. He averaged 10 points, 4 rebounds, and about an assist per game. Also, Kobe Brown, a guy that I think if Missouri is going to raise their ceiling this year and get to their ceiling, he's going to have to be a guy that breaks out. He averaged 5.8 points, 3.7 rebounds, and about half an assist per game for the Tigers last year. And then the other key guy I believe for this Missouri Tiger team is Jeremiah Tillman. He's a 6'10 senior, averaged 8 and 4 last year, and he's a guy that is going to be a very important piece to this team. And I believe that over the last couple of years, one of the main reasons why Missouri has gotten a little stale as a basketball program and why I don't really think there's that much buzz around this program right now is not only the fact that if we just look at it, Conzo Martin has not been that great of a recruiter over the last couple of years. But that aside, I just feel like Missouri needs that buzz. And Jeremiah Tillman is going to be a senior, and he hasn't really had that breakout season yet. And I feel like if I was a Missouri fan, that would be the one player where I don't want to say I would be frustrated with him, but it's like, all right, dog, you've been with this program a while. It's your senior year. We're really going to need you to take a step forward, especially when we have all of this talent back. And the problem with Missouri right now is this. I look at their roster and it's fine. I do think the two Smiths, Kobe Brown, Jeremiah Tillman, they're all pretty solid college players, and if they could all improve a little bit, there is a path to the NCAA tournament for Missouri. Now, it's a narrow one, but I do think they at least have a chance. My only issue is when you look at some of the other schools in the SEC, right, and some of the other coaches in the SEC, and we talk about it all the time, just how good some of these coaches are in the SEC. My issue here is that Missouri is not recruiting up to their caliber. And Conzo Martin is a coach that I totally understand Missouri is not the place where every college basketball player wants to play. I totally understand that. But at the same time, if you're Conzo Martin, why not tell kids that you were the one that coached Jaylen Brown? Why not tell kids that you were the one that coached Ivan Rabb? And, oh yeah, Michael Porter Jr., who's balling out in the NBA. And I feel like, to be honest with you, Conzo Martin, who usually throughout his coaching career has been a very good recruiter, he hasn't really done that so far at Ole Miss. Now, I understand in terms of a brand, he got a lot of talent to Cal, which is not a brand, but obviously kids want to play in Berkeley. You understand why a lot of very highly ranked recruits ended up going to Cal. Same with Tennessee. Conzo Martin was really able to get in some nice guys there. And at the same time, he just hasn't really been able to do that for Missouri. And the reason why that confuses me a little bit is just because of the fact that a lot of the other schools in the SEC are just flat out recruiting him, that, to be honest, it's just unacceptable. Vanderbilt should not be out recruiting Missouri when their benches are literally on the wrong side of the gym. Texas A&M and Georgia and Mississippi State, I just don't understand why those schools are out recruiting Missouri. And I think it's a problem. And even though one can make the argument that, oh yeah, the Missouri Tigers are just going to run everything back this year and improve, it's just, I'm not sure how exactly Conzo Martin and the rest of this team got better, or even attempted to get better for that matter. And I think ultimately that is my number one problem with this Missouri Tiger team. They do have many guys that I think could take maybe a small step, especially from that junior class. Xavier Pinson, Javon Pickett, Torrance Watson, Ed Chang, who didn't play last year, but he's a junior as well. I think those are going to be the guys that if Missouri is going to take a step forward and improve this season, they'll do it. Now, maybe their chemistry is really good, and maybe when you look at Conzo Martin and the way his team has played over the last couple of years, maybe I'm just underselling the fact that the talent wasn't there, the chemistry wasn't there, and this Missouri team could be really good. And usually, I am a fan of the teams that run it back and bring back a lot of returning talent, even if it's not necessarily a team that made the NCAA tournament the year prior. It's just a matter of, okay, do you have a good coach, and do you have guys that I think could really improve? And to be honest with you guys, looking at this Missouri team, I think Drew Smith could get a little better. I think he is going to have another year in the SEC, another year for playing under Cuonzo Martin, and maybe we'll see how far exactly that gets this Missouri squad. But I want to see Kobe Brown take a step forward. I want to see Jeremiah Tillman, a guy who, it's not like he's been a bad player, and he missed most of conference play last year. Mark Smith also missed 7 games in February, but both were also healthy for when the Tigers lost to Charleston Southern at home on December 3rd. Heading into 2020-2021, I do think, once again, there are some reasons for Missouri fans to be optimistic, but I just feel like a couple things need to happen. Number one, everyone's three-point percentage needs to get better. In 2018-2019, Xavier Pinson, 40% from three. Last year, 30%. Javon Pickett in 18-19, 31% from three. Last year, 28%. Mark Smith, 18-19, 45% from three. Last year, 37% from three. Torrance Watson, 18-19, 36% from three. Last year, 28% from three. Mitchell Smith, 41% from three in 18-19, and then in 19-20, 30%. So Missouri, all of those guys took dips in shooting from behind the arc. They're going to need to be better in that category. And I do think Drew Smith is going to really need to improve here. His presence on the floor gives Missouri that dual point guard look. He's very steady with the ball in his hands and does a lot of everything on both sides of the floor. Defensively, he could really play as well. And Missouri does have a pretty crowded backcourt. They're going to have guys that do have a big opportunity to play and prove why they deserve to be in the rotation with Torrance Watson and Drew Buggs and even Kobe Brown. Technically, he's in that front court. He's kind of that hybrid. But the bottom line is, for Missouri, it's not often you see a team bringing back 8 players who started at least one game the year prior and only projected to mildly improve. But Cuonzo Martin needs to do better, and I feel like he needs to focus a little bit more on developing guys. I firmly disagree with the way he's ran offense over the last couple seasons at Missouri. I feel like he needs to do a little bit better of a job there, spreading the ball out and being a little more dynamic in terms of setting up the play. So I'm going to pick Missouri to finish in 8th place in this SEC. I do think the fact that they do bring some guys back does provide some optimism. I'm just not sure how exactly much better they can get.